Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's Brian and Ms. Berlin for Breaking Down Security.
Hey, hey.
Mr. Betcher is in the ether. Don't know where he is exactly.
He's in Texas somewhere.
Oh, right. I mean, he is somewhere in the Milky Way galaxy, local group cluster, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, well, it's kind of my fault. I kind of sprung the last minute, hey, screw it. We're going to go ahead and record.
Our schedules have been insane lately.
I know. It's like we've not been able to sync anything. It used to be easy. We sync up all of our cycles and everything, and it just worked. Oh, wait.
Right.
Anyway, just a bunch of ladies, That's going to get me letters. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. That's what my mama always told me. She was like,
it's a thing.
It is? Okay.
Yeah.
Because my mama...
scientifically proven thing.
No shit. Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Oh, totally. I'll put it in the show notes.
No, please don't. Please don't. My mama and her two sisters, it was like, and my wife and her four sisters, they were like, when everything was going on, the guys were just running for the hills because it was just not good times. So, anywho, he'll be back next week, hopefully with us. Otherwise, he's probably out helping his family and stuff, and that's all right. It's all good. So, Ms. Berlin, we didn't have you on last week. How's everything going? What's going on?
Good, busy.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff happening.
Uh-oh.
Stuff with work, like work. No, work's super busy, and I've been traveling, and the mental health hackers thing is taking off like crazy,
right?
And other random things, kid stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's been crazy.
I try to remember to mention the hacker health Twitter and everything on the show at the end of the show. So, that's your next one's going to probably be B-Sides Austin, right? Yeah.
We have 4 confirmed: B-Sides Austin, B-Sides San Antonio, B-Sides Nashville, and Layer 8 conference.
The Layer 8 conference. Where is that?
That is in Providence, Rhode Island, and it's like a social engineering conference.
No. Oh, well, okay. It's kind of that kind of makes sense. Kind of an extension. Right? Yeah. Rhode Island, huh? I'm going to put that in the show notes. So if anybody's interested and lives in the Rhode Island area, and I've lived there, I've visited Rhode Island. It takes about 45 minutes to go across the entire state.
Yeah, I'll be driving to there from Ohio. So.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Okay.
That should be like 11 hours, I think.
Man.
I might even drive to Austin. We'll see.
Oh, dude. Well, Mr. Betcher did that for DerbyCon. You're not much farther away, I don't think.
I mean, 6 hours north.
Oh, well. Sorry, that whole middle of America thing just kind of gets all jumbly at some point. Yeah. Everybody's in Ohio. I assume Ohio's about the size of,
gigantic.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. So we're going to talk about a couple of things today that are kind of work-related, ancillary to our work, things that we've encountered at our work, which is kind of how we started the podcast way back in the day. Mr. Betcher and I...
What was your first, thing that you talked about?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, yeah, because we have an RSS feed. It's really easy to find. It was on hashing, as a matter of fact.
Oh, okay.
And the reason that I figured it would be a good one was because we had some developers at the place where Mr. Betcher and I worked at one time that thought, we'll just MD5, hash everything up with another MD5 hash because that makes it extra secure, MD5 hashing and MD5 hash. And we're like, no, that's not how any of this works. So our first one was, kicking some hash and, we talked about how hashing works, why you shouldn't necessarily, hash a hash and think that it's any better. Of course, nobody apparently listened to that podcast because they went ahead and hashed it anyway. They just used a more secure hash. So instead of MD5ing an MD5 hash, they SHA-1'd an MD5 hash and just called it that way.
Horrible.
Well, back in 2012, they didn't have the theoretical attacks and collisions. They didn't have the collisions on the SHA-1 stuff yet. Yeah, MD5 was still like crackable in half a moment or whatever. But yeah, so they hopefully they've gotten better at that place, and they or using at least SHA-2 when they're, shawing their hashes or whatever. So, so what are the things and we're going to talk about a couple of things. We got a news story that will kind of, go into some of the stuff we're talking about. So, Ms. Berlin, we're going to do you first. Yeah, I know. So you were telling me a little bit about some of the Google Cloud Platform stuff you were working on this week. So one, it begs the question, why all of a sudden are you using Google Cloud Platform?
Well, so all the software that we're writing runs on Google Cloud.
Is it because it runs on Google Cloud, or is it just the company you guys decided to use instead of Azure or AWS?
That's just I don't know what went into that decision because I'm not I'm not into like the development stuff.
Yeah, right.
So like they made that decision long before I got there.
No, that makes sense. I mean, there's different products that each provider provides, right. And right. So it may make sense in some cases. So
our software is finally rolled out, and we got our first couple customers already. Mm-hmm. And I have this lab on my laptop that I've been using, but every time I boot up more than 2 VMs, my MacBook sounds like it's going to take off.
Oh, mine does that, and all I need is one Docker and one VM. So yeah, right. Completely understand.
Right. But it's, everything was just slow, and I wanted something, better that other people could use, because now we're going to maybe start hiring more people. And
wink.
Yeah, wink. And we wanted a lab environment that everybody could have access to.
Right.
And kind of test with, because like that's what I've been doing most of my testing on is like Windows domains. Mm-hmm. And I don't have like a live one to test on like I used to a long time ago.
Right.
So yeah, I'm like, it's about time to like create a nice lab. So my boss gave me the okay, and we created a lab up there, and I was playing around with it at first on so he was telling me about like the web, how bad the web interface sucks. Mm-hmm. And like I was just getting errors left and right. I was trying to like, all it was like create from a pre-built template thing. Clicked a button, clicked another button. It was just supposed to be done, right? Windows 2016 server, boom, that's it.
Right.
And it was just like error after error after error after error. So I'm like, oh, this is killing me.
Yeah.
So he told me about G Cloud, like the CLI interface that you can do.
Sure.
And there's like the app that you can install. So like I ran it and installed the command line part on my laptop. And then I also found out you can do it in the browser interface as like this SSH via Chrome browser, like this plugin thing.
Oh, you mean like a PHP box that is really just an SSH client inside? Yeah.
Right.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And that worked a little bit better than the client on my MacBook. And then I accidentally, like the first instance I created was called Help.
Help me?
Not on purpose either, because I was doing like, working like with the computing instances, and I'm like trying to see what all the commands are. And then I went one step too far and hit help, and it actually created a box called help with like it was a Debian box that got spun up in like 5 seconds. I'm like, well, that's not what I wanted to do.
Well, it's fairly fast to spin up an entire box for Debian in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, it was really quick. And so I deleted that one. So now I knew how to create and delete them via the CLI. And then I finally got around to creating one via the web interface, and it has the thing that I did like about it is when it finally started working, is it gives you like the API and the CLI code like for all the web settings that you've created.
Okay. I love that kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh man, I love that. Yeah. So you go through and you like select all the crap that you want, and then you're like, oh, I want to see what this looks like in the CLI. Mm-hmm. And I looked at it and like, oh yeah, I'd have never gotten that.
Yeah. There's only a handful of applications I've ever found that are actually useful like that, where it's like, there's a command line component and it's like, here's Handbrake. is one that I've always seen. Was like when I'm making, legal archival copies of Blu-rays or whatever, it shows you all those settings down at the bottom where it's like, okay, you can run this in, Mincoder or whatever the hell it is and make it work. Or I think Nmap at one time or ZenMap or something had a command line where it would show you what it was you should be running for the command line, which was very helpful. So those are really awesome. So now that you've created one, you said you created two earlier, right?
So now I have a Windows 2016 domain controller up and running, and I'm going to start adding stuff to it. And the client that we use for our log collector is just called a sensor. Like you just throw, like you can throw syslog and wef and like every log type that you want at it, and it just like aggregates it and sends it back to our Google Cloud stuff.
Right.
And so I'm setting that up so I can do everything in our prod and our test environment, and hopefully it works.
Now, how are you interacting with the Windows 2016 stuff? Is it RDP?
Yeah, there's actually like a plugin for Google Chrome that you can either use that or you can use like another RDP client if you have one. But the plugin for Chrome was nice because all you do is click RDP and it pops up and you put in your username and password and boom, you have like this RDP client like built into Chrome. Okay.
And so have you thought about maybe adding the Linux subsystem and using like SSH on your Windows box 2016?
No.
Well, I was just wondering because from what I remember, starting with Server 2016, if you use like a micro instance, it has no. I'm going to call it X Windows, but it's one of the first iterations to not have a desktop. If you want to, you can run it completely headless.
No, 2012 started that, I think.
Oh, well, see, I'm far behind the times then.
This is like Core. It's called Core.
That's right. Server
Core.
That's right. I thought that was okay. The first time I ever saw that, it said 2016. Maybe I was wrong. So, no interest in running it without the X Windows part, or the Windows desktop.
No.
I would be interested to see what kind of how much you save resource wise by not having all that extra junk.
Yeah, and like I'm already learning a whole bunch of stuff for the first time. Like as I go through all of this stuff, like I can bring all my other security knowledge to the table when it comes to like building rule sets and things. But when it comes to like having to use G-Cloud and having to like I'm having to learn SQL and all this other stuff that I don't really know a whole lot about.
Right.
I don't want to have to learn how to manage Active Directory via the command line.
Right. Well, you know what you need to do now is you need to automate it. Now that you figured out exactly what you need to do and need to set up, and it's giving you the code, all you need to do is automate it.
Oh yeah, I copied and pasted that. All right.
Yeah. You've got one for a DC, but I mean, you're creating member servers and all that other stuff too?
Yeah, I'm just going to create one more member server and probably 2 desktops, and then start attacking them and sending all of the Windows logs, because you can turn on all of that advanced logging and just blow up your Windows logs. So that's what I plan on doing. Yeah, I don't know of any logging cheat sheets or anything like that out there that you could use to compare that against. So if anybody has any suggestions on a good Windows logging cheat sheet, right.
Yeah, actually,
I'll have to create one.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Probably should.
I'm sure it'll be quality.
Yeah, you'll be the first one to ever do that. So that's the. Oh my God, he's just rolling over his grave, Goff over there. No, actually, I suggested. So I have a story. So you have a work story. I have a work story. We're very busy over in my office, and one of the engagement that we're doing, and I'm not going to name names or industry or anything like that. They shipped us some hardware. And it's a bunch of Windows boxes. It has a touch screen PC kind of thing. It has a server with some VMs running on it. And, one of the requirements was server hardening. They wanted us to make sure that they were doing all the industry best practices to make sure that they're, hardened and secure against all kinds of things. And our testers were like, man, I need to, get some, figure out what good best practices are. And I was like, well, malware archaeology has the Windows logging cheat sheet. That was one of the requirements, was to check audit logs and, security logging and everything. And come to find out it's just default setup and everything. So it was good to utilize that little function there. The other thing that got me was we were in a status call and having to explain CSRF to somebody who didn't quite understand. Yeah.
How do you explain it to somebody that doesn't understand?
Well, I'm going to crib notes from my testers, my team, because I'm the PM for the engagement. So we started off by discussing what CSRF was and the fact that one part of the system that we were looking at was vulnerable to CSRF, which is also known as what's called the confused deputy, if you look it up online. CSRF is the way that the steps to recreate in many cases is you have an application and you log into it, say a bank, and you get a cookie and you get a session token, and your session lasts for, let's say, 3 minutes. And let's say you get an email from Bob at bob.com, and Bob says, "Hey, I've got a cool form I want you to go poke at here. Click on this link." So you click on it, and the link takes you to a forum that doesn't, it ask you for name, address, likes, dislikes, favorite pets, that kind of stuff. Typical stuff you'd find in a Facebook survey post. And, you put all that in, very fun-like, and you click the submit button. Well, if you did that with the other tab open and you're still logged into the original application, by clicking submit, you're not actually submitting any of the information on the form necessarily, but the form handler can make changes or make commands to the original application on the other tab. So in this case, the application allowed us to change somebody's password using confused deputy. So, we're trying to explain this to the people, and it's just like, they're not getting it. So it's like, my guys are explaining, they're like, "Yeah, so what, they'll steal the cookie and then use it that way?" No, not exactly. I mean, that is a valid way of doing a specific kind of attack, like a cross-site scripting where it would, retrieve the cookie in that way. But no, this is, you're already logged in, so there's nothing to do. "Oh, well, the user must know about this." No, it will be done in the background. It would be like, nothing happened, and so, one of our guys explained it once, and I'm like, I'm mouthing to these, they're not getting it. They're just not getting it. And he starts, it's like he's speaking slower. He's like, I don't think speaking slower is going to make it any better.
Did he speak louder as well?
Well, what happened finally was that somebody else on the team, on the client's team, came in and appeared to be a bit more knowledgeable. And when we explained it for a third time, he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I get it. All right, we're good." And then he was, they talked about it offline. So, yeah, I don't know why CSRF was so confusing. It just, it seems fairly straightforward, fairly rudimentary. The other one that we came up with was like, DOM-based XSS, which, is one of the three types of cross-site scripting. DOM-based is where the vulnerability is in client-side code rather than the server side, where, when you go into a forum and you log in and you've got a text box and you can, or like an email signature, and you can, load the page up, and if it's stored, like if for a forum post or something, every time somebody refreshes the page, the cross-site scripting fires off. In this case, when the code is sent back from the server, you can embed code into it in such a way that the client-side code in the browser actually shoots off a vulnerability. And the news story we had this week, and I was supposed to do the news story, I think, beforehand, was that Google is actually working on a Chrome security feature to obliterate DOM XSS. And DOM is a document object model. So they're looking at something called Trusted Types browser API as a defense against DOM XSS based attacks. So, so what they want to do is block attacks by allowing website owners to lock down known injection points in a website's code that are often the root cause of DOM-based XSS. We a lot of the times when we're on engagements, we like to hit the low-hanging fruit. So we look for things like Do they have CSP, content security policy? Do they have CSRF tokens? Because you can actually use CSRF tokens, nonce in this case, to actually reduce the chances of actually using a CSRF attack. And the nonce in this case for CSRF has to be, formatted and have a proper format for that. So, and the idea is when you reload the page, it generates a new token every time in some cases. So, yeah. So, it's quite an interesting quandary that we have here. So,
how often do you think you come across that?
What? Cross-site scripting?
Well, those specifically.
Oh, if there's a web application out there, I would name names, but it's like every time. I mean, we hit. I want to be positive, but yeah, it seems like every web application that we poke at, we find is some kind of CSRF or XSS vulnerability on one bit. And the problem is when the customer knows they've been had and they try to start minimizing it. Oh, this is a high finding because of X. And a lot of times it's because we're doing third-party validations for another company, and they have specific guidelines for who's going to be able to do things in their environment. So, they see this first party sees the third party, having cross-site scripting, and it's an actual high instead of a low, because anything cross-site scripting is a high. So, yeah. We still see cross-site scripting. We still see SQL injection. We still see, cross-tenancy issues. I mean, it's not getting any better in some cases. And, it still holds true where we're often the agent of change for some organizations, because we do get emails from people who, ask for the engagement, and they're so happy because, they were able to, improve their security, or, and when we go back to do retests, they've all been fixed. And, we try to make sure that we're not just looking at what they fixed, we blocked all ampersands, or we blocked all single quotes. We always try to, go the extra mile on that. So, let's see, what else are we looking at? Oh,
man, talking. Yeah.
We're not going to talk about it. I can.
I told you I was going to put the link in the show notes.
No.
I was wrong.
Oh,
it's a complete myth.
I don't.
To go back to something else, so we don't actually have to talk about that.
Yeah. Now the other big issue we're having is hardening issues. It's like there's still organizations out there that are not doing hardening standards. Even if it's
lots of them.
How hard is it to do hardening standards? How hard is it to lock down your boxes? I mean, my friend, Dr. Crispin Cowan, he's my carpool buddy too. No local admin on boxes. Gets rid of a good number of vulnerabilities or issues that can arise.
It's a lot of work.
Why is it a lot of work? Let me ask you that. Why is it?
To start, when you already have an environment that's just messed up.
Right.
And you don't know what software you're running, and you don't know, say you have anywhere from, enterprise-wide 50 to 5,000 different types of software, and, locations everywhere. Everybody has, their special snowflake instance of things that they need to do.
Sure.
And, you don't always know what you're going to break when you take that access away, because nobody actually knows what the software does.
Right. Okay. All right. Let me ask you something. It's got to start somewhere though, right? So let's say you've got a couple thousand people company, like a typical small, medium business.
Right.
All right. So who are the first people that should be testing the non-local admin thing?
Someone in IT.
I would argue that the security people need to be the ones to fall on that sword first.
Oh, yeah.
And the security people shouldn't be going, well, everybody else should be doing it, blah, blah, blah. And if you're not doing it, you are part of the problem because you have no moral ground to stand on. You can't say, well, you should be not local admin.
And it's hard to get rid of when you have like just admin everything the entire time you've been there. Trying to take that away and give you a second admin account, like to only use sparingly. That's fair. It's a pain. That's completely
fair. And I know that there's going to be people out there that'll be like, well, I need to be local admin because of X. Okay.
No, you need to have a local admin account.
Sure.
You don't need to be running as it all the time.
Right. All right.
But yeah, I definitely think all of IT should do that first. And then, you're going to have people that manage software or like they're the data owners or whatever. You should probably, target them next. And just go down the list, because at the same time that you're doing that, you can get a really good idea of what kind of software you have.
Sure. And, most security people, it's like, oh yeah, we need local admin because we need to run all this specialty software. You should see it as a challenge to run as low as possible and still be able to use the software you have. There's things like software restriction policies, app locker, whitelisting, those things because I worked at the company I used to work at before I started working here, I kept everything separate. I didn't even check like Gmail or anything on my work laptop. And people were like, how the hell do you do that? I even had separate like password lockers. I didn't put work passwords in my personal locker. I didn't put personal lock. Yeah. And it's like, they're like, how do you do that? And I'm like, well, essentially I had two laptops. I didn't even use a VM, like kind of setup. It was a pain in the ass. I will not lie to you. But I didn't have to worry about clicking on an email in my personal Gmail account and owning my entire office because I did that. If I don't check my personal stuff, and everybody walks around with a second laptop. I'm waving a phone in front of the camera to Ms. Berlin, but everybody has a second laptop. You can check your personal email, you can check your Facebook, you can check everything on there. You don't need, I
just have the one.
The one what? Oh, the one laptop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have another one, but it's a Windows laptop and I refuse to use it. So my kids get to use it for homework.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I'm
too spoiled now.
No, that's cool. I still have a MacBook over here. I've got a Surface. I have a Surface Book for work, I'm using Android, so I've got all the platforms, but it just seems to me that hardening is still something that a lot of organizations are still not doing, and it should be fairly easy. Slowly, you don't have to like cut everything off cold turkey. You could say, next week we're going to start not being able to just install everything willy-nilly. How many times after an initial build are you needing to install something? To be honest, you get your suite of software. Unless you're installing, a new text editor or a new IDE, perhaps if you're a developer, you're not going to be installing a ton of stuff.
Right.
The majority of things that are going to change are like, maybe web, based icon, web-based stuff or something. Once you get your IDE set up, you're not going to be changing that much, I would imagine, as a developer.
Nope.
It would really behoove us security people to go and maybe find out what software most of the people in your dev shop uses, or, what people in your executive office uses. Find out if your manager could ideally, he probably has the same type of access as the senior folks, but most of them are going to be using a browser, email, and Word Office Productivity Suite. At that point, you could probably start restricting some of that stuff, or making it so. What
we did, we switched anybody that wasn't in a super technical role. They just all got Chromebooks.
You know what? I've heard that in more than one place. Yeah.
So much easier for management.
Now, how did you do things like integrate with Active Directory or Office 365? Obviously, doesn't work on that.
Switched everything to Google.
Wow. Yeah. I love me some. Look, I love me some Google Docs. I have a Google Apps account.
It is not nearly as good as the Office suite.
That is a somewhat true statement. Yes. Yeah. That's...
I miss Excel a lot sometimes when trying to work with Google Sheets.
Well, I mean, does Google Sheets do pivot tables? Because that's how InfoSec works. They work on pivot tables.
You're right. I don't know. I've not had to do a pivot table yet, but I know, like, it doesn't really like merge cells the same, and it does weird stuff. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, there will be some growing pains. To be honest, I actually find Google Docs to be far more stable than Office 365 when I'm editing Word docs or something. I have corruption issues in Office 365 if more than 3 people are working on a report, and I know that we've had at least half a dozen people working on a show notes or something for the podcast and never had any issues with that. So there's got to be a way they can make it more robust, but it's just me. So yeah, hardening. It's definitely something the security people should be looking at and doing first and falling on that particular sword, because then you kind of have the moral high ground. Look, I have 85 pieces of software, including VMs, and I need to be able to do stuff.
Everybody should just switch to zero trust.
Oh God, no. No. I can't even control Z that. I can't. No. You might as well just give up and just burn it all down now if you're going to go to zero trust,
Yeah, give up. I don't want to be in security anymore. Yeah. That stuff's hard.
I could probably do fairly well as a hot dog salesman or something like that in New York. Yeah. Get your hot dogs here. Yeah, I'll
just go work in retail again.
Oh.
Find me at Lowe's.
Wow, that's unforgiving. So, all right. Well, I think we're going to cut it early this week because I have to finish up some pass down work for my job because I'm actually going to be in New Orleans next week for the we're off on Monday for President's Day, of course, but we're taking midwinter break here in the Seattle area because, damn, we've just had a lot of snow.
You just need to get out of the area.
Damn. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because we don't get 2 foot of snow here. We got 2 foot of snow up here in the mountains. And when it snows in Seattle and there's still snow on the ground today, it's pretty bad stuff in Seattle. It's been 3 days of about mid-50s. So it shut down the whole city and the whole region. So it was fairly bad. So if you live in New Orleans and, you want to, hook up or show us the cool sites or, hang out with us at Lafayette No. 1 Cemetery. We're going to be doing a walk-in tour of that, I think, on Tuesday or Wednesday. So if you're interested in, hooking up, let me know. Can't guarantee we'll hang out because my wife will be like, who the hell are these strange people and why are they hanging out? But, reach out on Slack, which we'll talk about in a second. So, Ms. Berlin, let's take it home. How do we get a hold of you? Talk about yourself or hackers' health and all that.
Twitter's best, especially lately, even though I've not been great at checking it lately. But InfoSystir, INFOSYSTIR, or Hackers Health. And our website's actually up now too, mentalhealthhackers.org.
Do you use Squarespace? Please don't say you use Squarespace.
No.
Okay, good.
No, but we are using WordPress.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But you've locked it down.
It's like this managed WordPress instance thing, and I don't know. It's all right.
As long as you don't have any plugins, you should be fine for the most part.
I don't know. I'm not managing it. I have somebody else doing that for me.
Oh. Be careful that they're not putting tons of plugins and shit on there. So.
Yeah, she does it for a living, so we talked about the whole security thing. I actually met her at DocsFest in Munich.
Oh, very cool. Okay. Very nice. Yeah. Managing it, having somebody else manage it's always helpful. So.
Yeah, I got enough stuff to do.
Yeah, I need to get some things off my plate because I'm trying to do too much, I think. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll bring myself up last. Mr. Betcher, of course, head developer, CTO of, logmd.com, log-md.com. You can find him on Twitter at BetcherPwned, BOETTCHERPWNED. I am the podcast, of course, at Brakesec, BRAKESEC. You can follow me on Twitter, Brian Brake. BRYANBRAKE. We have a Slack. It's still going fairly active. We actually thought about moving it off of that because people are complaining that the 10K message limit is too restrictive, but I think it's still probably cost prohibitive in terms of time and effort to do so. So I believe we're probably going to stick around on Slack for a while.
They should just stop talking so much.
Yeah. No, don't do that.
No, okay. I can't keep up as it is.
We're changing lives, man. I mean, we've got people who are finding jobs on there. I've got people who are like, hey, I'd like to invite this person I'm mentoring to the Slack because it seems like a fairly cool environment and community to meet people about infosec. So I was like, all right, well.
We're getting close to the 2,000 people mark.
Yeah, I may end up purging some people in the future. We're up to 1,706 accounts and about 400 active users a day. So there's a lot going on in there. We actually have a channel on containers and VMs. So Ms. Berlin, there you go. If you've got questions about your Google Cloud stuff, endpoint security, SIM. I think one of our moderators, Mr. Cybuck, interviewed Peter Kim, who was the author of our current book club instance, Hacker Playbook 3, third edition. So maybe I can work out something. We can get Mr. Kim on the show to talk about his book. That way we'll have two authors on the show at once again. Great. So
and let's get like everybody on here.
There you go.
All the authors we know, we'll just get them all on one podcast.
I don't hate having authors on the show because they'll have something to talk about. So that's always good. So if you're interested in joining the Slack, getting involved with the CTF group there that does, CTFs like Over the Wire or Hack the Box, send us a DM on Twitter at Brakesec, or you can email us bds.podcast@gmail.com. Have a Patreon if you found value in our rant tonight about hardening and you're like, yes, amen. I completely understand where you're coming from with regards to that. We use the Patreon to pay for our Zoom every month, our hosting fees at Libsyn, time and effort to get the podcast out, time and effort of, nurturing and curating our community on Slack. So you can hit us up. I think it's brakesec.com/Patreon. You can join us and hit that. And, tell your friends because, everybody needs to, get some education and get some CPEs and stuff for, your various certifications. So if you're interested in, you found value in this, just let your friends know. So we're on Google Play Store, Apple Podcasts. Please leave some feedback. It gives us more, visibility. We have a YouTube channel if you don't want to use the RSS feed. We are on Spotify, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio app. It's all over the place. So, Brakesec.com/BDS Patreon. There you go. So it's all one word. But I knew it was something.
It's BDS_podcast on Patreon site.
What? Really?
Yeah, patreon.com/BDS_podcast.
Oh, crap.
I just looked it up.
That sucks. Okay. I'll probably have to go in and futz with that a little bit. So, all right. Well, we'll be back next week. I'll have a rousing story or two about New Orleans, I'm sure. Everyone, have a great week. Please be nice to one another. Take care of yourself because you're the only you have. This was it for Breaking Down Security this week. Thank you, Ms. Berlin, for joining us.
Yeah.
All right. And everyone else, you have a great week too.
See ya.
Caught you off guard there for a second because I kind of mixed up the end part.
I know.
Didn't I? Yeah.
I'm so confused.
You're like, wait, what? Oh, he said goodbye. Oh, wait, no, he didn't. Yeah. All right. Well, that was pretty good. I like that. Yeah, I really think, I think we don't do enough. I think we're a bit hypocritical in that respect with, you should be, securing all the things, but we're not really securing our things. I mean, no. I know a lot of security people that don't use password lockers, but what do we tell people to do? Use fucking password lockers.
Yeah, I do pretty good at that.
Yeah.
And like 2-factor auth I'm good with, and doing, and I use what the fuck's it called? LastPass.
Yeah. I 2-factor all the things. I don't use a browser integrator for my password locker. It's a pain in the ass. It truly is a pain in the ass to use a password locker.
I pay for LastPass just because I want it to integrate, and I'm lazy.
No, I hear you, but so many of those vulnerabilities you get from Tavis is the interaction between the password locker and the browser itself, and that's where he attacks. And I have KeyPass on my work box that I use for all of my passwords over there. I use 1Password for all my other stuff, but yeah, it's like we have people at my office. It's like, why aren't you using a password? It's not convenient. I'm like, you don't get it. If we're recommending that people use those, we have to use them ourselves.
Right.
So anyway, all right. Well, thank you for joining me. I appreciate you getting on.